So the other, interesting news, and we'd had forecasted this for a while, the Ubisoft Forward. So that actually happened our time just a few days ago. Do you want to run through some of the things that you thought were interesting in this, and then I'll chime in, and probably we'll do it that way?
Yeah, so they actually had quite a handful of cool little announcements, and then just a bunch of updates and games that honestly I don't care about, but they would have been of interest to some people. So this was their chance to show off Immortals Fenyx Rising, former gods and
Gods and
monsters.
Monsters, yeah.
It's weird. The more that I'm seeing that name, the less I hate it, but it's still a bad name. But
But it's still not as good as Gods and Monsters, and just seeing the trailer, I still don't get the name change. They didn't explain it.
I wonder if like the SEO on Gods and Monsters was pretty like rough to get. So they're like, we need to do something.
No, but if they were honest and they just said, people won't find this game. We sort of realized people won't find this game as if it's called Gods and Monsters. To be honest, I'd be like fine with that as the explanation.
But no, especially in the video game industry, no one ever actually says that. No one ever actually explains why they do stuff like that. But so they had a very cinematic trailer, and then I guess a bunch of gameplay, and gave a lot closer look into the game. The trailer had a weird music choice. It had James Brown on it, but
yeah, I know what the hell.
It wasn't bad. It just felt kind of odd.
No, it was not good. Like, you know how the other week I was saying, I feel like game trailers these days are like 10 out of 10. This was not a 10 out of 10 trailer.
No, I think what they probably wanted to do is they wanted to kind of separate it a bit from, like, maybe the previous version and try to set a different tone. One thing I'll say about this game is, so I'm super pumped to try this game. I think it looks amazing. But the art style, especially on the main character, I know but the weird part is that it's a customizable character. But I guess the version they used for the trailer, I don't know. There's just so many close-ups on the face, and it just looked a bit like fake Disney-ish.
It looked like Fortnite to me.
Yeah, but the actual game itself. So what I'm actually going to do is just. Bugger, I can't. I had it open, but I'm not going to worry about it. So the look of this game is very similar to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the DLC Fate of Atlantis, specifically in the area where it's all lush green, purplish, colors and stuff. Looks very similar to the Fields of Elysium section in Odyssey. That I reckon that when they designed that, they said, we've actually got to take this and make a full game out of this kind of look and feel, because it's so similar and similar to that to Immortals. I'm like, God, what's the name again? Immortals. Each DLC takes you, like, it goes through Fields of Elysium, then it takes you to Hades and takes you to Atlantis. So it's taking you through the domains of the different gods and with all the mythological creatures. So it's so strange. It's like it's the same game, but with like a touch of Zelda to it. So it's it's.
But just on the Zelda thing, you've heard what the developers have said, that it was a massive inspiration, Breath of the Wild, and they've kind of almost basically said, yes, it is a bit of a, how do you say? It's like, that kind of famous quote around, good artists copy and great artists steal. It's like to me, when I was looking at some certain gameplay footage, it was like, wow, this looks like Breath of the Wild with Fortnite characters.
Yeah, but some of that stuff also is very Assassin's Creed. So,
sure, that's true. That is true. Yeah.
Even things like the climbing and stuff. If anyone looks at the gun and goes, "Oh, it's like Breath of the Wild climbing," well, that's Assassin's Creed. That's to me where a lot of that stuff has come from, even the puzzles and things. But so I'm just going to actually see if I can copy this, because I don't think you probably would have ever seen what this DLC looks like. Okay, so if I'm just put this in the chat for you. There you go.
Yep.
So yeah, when you look at that, that's probably not the best shot of it, but
yeah, I get what you're saying. It's less
100%.
cartoony. It's less cartoony, but yeah.
It's 100% like that kind of real, like, crazy mythological, like waterfalls falling off giant mountains and lots of lush colors.
Yeah.
And that was one of my absolute favorite parts of Odyssey was playing through that DLC. So that's actually one of the reasons why I'm most keen from it, is that it's got that kind of, that heritage to it. I do hope that the whole tone and when they're showing like the comedy in it, none of that appeals to me. I just like the idea of flying around this cool world, and just doing some cool puzzles and stuff. So
Well, the thing for me was that um, the trailer really did not sell me at all. And I'm a huge fan of Breath of the Wild. I don't know, the trailer and it's just strange comedic choices, timing, just nothing really compelled me about it. I did see some other people who actually had hands-on demo versions, like 1.5 or 2.5 hours worth, and very positive response from all the people that were playing it. Sort of like, hey, I just want to keep playing it. Like, it was actually really fun to actually play. So, I feel like they have not sold this game well to someone like me. Other people that have actually spoken about it have actually said it's pretty good. And it kind of reminds me of Control, where Control, just the way they marketed that game, to me wasn't very good at all. But just hearing people's perspectives on it, I'm like, I think this would be like a game I'd love. They didn't package it in a way that would appeal to people that may enjoy it.
I think what you'll see though is this game will be everywhere, because Ubisoft will put a huge marketing budget behind it, and that's what Control didn't have. Control didn't have that giant awareness campaign, just because they wouldn't have had the money to do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I agree that the choice of the music in the trailer specifically wasn't great, but I think the trailer itself was fine for me. But it's more so just my love of I guess the heritage of it's combining the Zelda and probably the parts of Zelda I like, Breath of the Wild specifically, with the parts that I love of Assassin's Creed. So that's why I'm really keen to try, and it's really interesting that it's essentially coming out in everything. Which
on
I
the
didn't
Switch
realize.
as well, right?
Yeah. And it's really weird. They had a huge push for Stadia with this. Like, Stadia is getting
that's right,
an exclusive demo that's apparently constructed just for Stadia.
Dude, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when I saw Phil Harrison pop in, I'm like, oh, bro. And yeah, I totally actually forgot about it until you just mentioned it then. That's so funny.
But they've got to try, like
it's so dead though. It's so dead.
I know. But at this point, like, they've either got to try or they just give up.
Yeah, true. I totally agree. It's just, it is dead. Let's be real.
Yeah. All right. So another cool announcement was Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake. So I'm a huge fan of, I guess, let's say the PS2 era Prince of Persia games. So Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones. I specifically love Warrior Within and Two Thrones, honestly, probably more, which is probably the opposite of most people. But that's because I played them a lot more. So with Sands of Time, it's really interesting. This trailer had a very negative reaction to a lot of people saying, oh, the remake needs a remake. Oh, it looks worse than the original. If you actually look at what the first Sands of Time looked like, it honestly actually looked kind of rough back in the day when it came out. It wasn't the best looking game at the time because they focused a lot more on the gameplay and like the time rewinding mechanics of making it look like the best game at the time. I won't say I love the art direction of the remake in any way, but it certainly does look a lot better than the original. I'm keen to try it. I hope that I'm keen to see if they actually kind of clean up the gameplay a little bit, because while Sands of Time was good, the series definitely refined things. Even I think it's the Forbidden Sands or whatever, the one that was on 360, that introduced some cool elements. I'm not saying to introduce things, but to maybe just clean up the animations and that. And I would honestly hope, if this sells well, I hope it gets them to actually, really make a new one, because Prince of Persia is one of my favorite series, and that's going back all the way to playing the original on my Amstrad and stuff like that. So this is pretty cool.
That's a real retro. Yeah, look, I feel like, geez, I'm so off the pace with how people view this stuff, because I saw the trailer for it and I was like, yeah, like I wasn't like blown away, let's say, by the way it looked, but I kind of just thought, yeah, serviceable, it's fine. And then, I saw everyone's reaction to it and I was like, wow, I just don't, have the same type of sensitivity that people do about this stuff. Like, people really were like fired up about how this game looked.
Yeah, they definitely could have I think they could have done a lot better with specifically the faces and the character models and that.
Yeah, the
But
face is probably the worst, eh?
yeah, and that's what people are probably focusing on a lot of especially when they show a lot of the cutscenes. So there's still time to probably fix that up. But as a first impression, I can understand why some people were immediately like, "Oh, wait a second." But to go that far to say that it looked worse than the original,
Oh,
um,
that's just silly.
it's not. Like, you just have to look at screenshots, and I'm sure there's comparison videos out there by now about it. But yeah, so that was cool. We had another announcement that was kind of teased a couple of weeks ago, of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game getting a
Yes.
complete edition. That's coming holiday 2020 for essentially PC. Oh, by the way, sorry, the Sands of Time remake is only on PC, PS4, and Xbox One, so it hasn't been announced for next gen yet. That'll probably
Mm.
get there eventually. But for Scott Pilgrim, that's on PC, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and Stadia. I I actually own the Scott Pilgrim on 360, and it was a really really cool game. I didn't get far enough into it to see a lot of the cool stuff they showed in the trailer, though. I'm like, man, I should have actually given this game a much bigger shot. I loved I never read the comics, but I loved the film.
Mm.
Um, this is cool. I think this is just a huge one for the fans. It's not going to probably set the world on fire from a money standpoint for Ubisoft. So I think this is just one that is just going to just be a nostalgia trip for a lot of people. So
Yeah, and I think like when I saw this getting announced, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna, be the one that blows up. Just because so many people were upset when this game disappeared off the store a few years ago, and
hmm.
hadn't appeared on any storefronts for a long, long period of time. Um, so yeah, like it's pretty cool. Again, I think we mentioned this with Battletoads, right? Like, beat 'em ups. It's just it's kind of not a genre that I'm like super appealed to play. But if there's one of them that I might play, it might be something like this. Again, something like this was on Game Pass for a period of time. It's such a good kind of place to play it, right? Just because it's probably a few hours type of experience. What the game would be 4 or 5 hours, you reckon, at most?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I have no
Mm.
idea. I don't think it was a super short experience, but I think this is a great fit for the Switch. I think this would
Mm.
look really good in handheld mode, as long as it still runs okay. We know that sometimes we're surprised when games don't run great, but it's yeah. I think if this ends up being decently priced, maybe I'll actually pick it up to play it on the Switch.
Yeah, I just checked. It was about 4 hours on How Long to Beat, like kind of the main story. So yeah, like that's what I'd expect from a beat 'em up. You wouldn't want to have something a lot longer than that. That's just kind of too drawn out, I think.
And the title that actually surprised me the most was a brand new IP that they announced, which is called Riders Republic. So it's essentially a big multiplayer kind of extreme sports game. They show a whole bunch of people riding down, I guess like national parks in the US, in like on bikes, on snowboards because there's like snowy areas as well, on wingsuits, and the game itself looks really, really cool, but the tone of the trailer was just horrible to me. So it's kind of like I was so split. The scene, especially the footage of whether or not that's exactly how you see it in the game, of the mountain bike rider going down like the rocky paths and the terrain, that looks really, really cool. I'm looking forward to actually trying this eventually, but the whole let's super colorful anarchistic kind of characters with like a panda suit but he's got like crossed out the eyes with spray paint, that stuff to me, like it's like some of the Watchdog stuff, it just doesn't hit to me. It's like trying to be cool and it just kind of like feels so forced. But I think the game itself looks really cool, and I think it has the potential to be a huge hit on Twitch and things like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
It's so interesting you're saying that because I feel like this game has been slammed by so many people, and quite honestly, like my impression of it when I was looking at the Ubisoft Forward and watched the whole thing, like I was just kind of like, who's this game for? I didn't really get it. Like, I actually have friends who are into these extreme sports, and like there's reasons why you want to do it together as mates and stuff like that. I don't really see the appeal of playing a game like this that's kind of like not like competitive, but it's kind of collaborative or something online in a massive sort of multiplayer sort of arena. And I think that's what they're really trying to push in this game. Like, I think, I should have checked this, but I think it was like either 50 or 60 people simultaneously. That's what they're sort of talking about, who are playing any track. It just, the trailer didn't hit it for me. The game concept, I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't really, like, it definitely doesn't appeal to me, this game.
For me, it's like I see elements of, and this is like later on. I didn't like the initial footage, but later as they start to show more of it, I actually like this almost like if they're I'm interested to see what the single player element or like what that stuff is, because there's actually elements of Skate that reminded me of, and how Skate did its online stuff, where you essentially can have 4 people doing online challenges with each other and things like that. So I was a big fan of that. It was really fun, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's half of me that hated the way they actually presented it, but then there's another part where they actually showed what the game footage looks like, that I'm like, that actually looks cool to me. Like, I'm actually interested in trying it out. But I think it depends on really what they put the focus in. If it's all about the multiplayer, like 90% of it, then maybe not. But if there's there's a cool game there just to experience, whether or not it's by yourself or with other people, then I'm keen to try it. I think it's I think some people are probably looking for a new style of game like this, in this style I should say. And as I said, I don't think the tone of the trailer was very good, but I think the game itself has potential.
Yeah. Like, I remember when we were chatting about Fall Guys and sort of just going, oh yeah, look at this game, let's see how this goes. It's really going to rely on, getting people to it quickly. And, that game blew up. Like, we certainly didn't at all predict that, or even come close to predicting that.
We also didn't know at the time it was going to be on PS Plus.
Well, yes. And that's like, in a way, just to defend ourselves, we did kind of call out from a perspective of like, you need to get people on these games really, really quickly. So I think strategically, very, very smart decision that team took to actually make it free. And, they've even published after the fact that it's had millions of purchases on Steam, and when it eventually comes out to the Switch, which it will, let's be real, it's going to have a stack more of people buying it, and it's going to have that second wind when it comes out on Switch. And I'm sure they'll try to align that with season 3 or something like that of Fall Guys. But yeah, this game, you're probably right. Like, there is an element where it will live and die by how well it does on Twitch, or getting just people on it, or sort of being a really unique and cool experience. And I still think that one thing that Stadia did talk about, and I'd love to see them, I really genuinely believe you could still do this on next gen at least, is, if I'm a streamer, like, and let's just say that we started streaming and, our audience can join our games, and it's like really easy to jump in and jump out of like our sort of lobby, and it's all sort of integrated into Twitch. Like, that to me, that's really appealing. Like, I think that that's really, really cool. Like, and it actually helps really small streamers as well. People who do have the dozens or maybe 100 at most of viewers, people watching, a game like this. If you can get like everyone into it, it creates that, unique selling proposition, that folks would look at it and go, hey, you know what, this is pretty cool, like, experience, and like our little sort of niche experience that we could have with this game. I mean, it's coming out in early 2021. So yeah, it seems like, we'll find out then how well it does.
Yeah, I just want to ride down like a rocky, crazy, dangerous mountain first person on a BMX bike. Whatever they're doing. It probably wasn't BMX. Like, that footage, what's weird, I saw that footage before I saw anything else about the game, because I just happened to wake up in the middle of the night and see that this event was happening, and I just chucked it on, and it was them going down the mountain. I'm like, what the hell is this game? And then I went back to sleep and then saw the whole intro to it. So I think that actually changed my take on this game a lot, because I saw that first. So anyway, it's cool. It's also coming to essentially everything current gen and next gen except for Switch, which makes sense. It looks like it's a game that needs a lot of horsepower. So
it's also multiplayer, right? So
yeah, we
like,
know it's...
yeah, I know, like, there is a serious problem with the Switch, man. It's like, the Wi-Fi unit as well is just like one of the worst, Wi-Fi cards that is integrated with the Switch. So yeah, you get a bunch of Switch people on, and who knows what's going to happen, unless they have like direct servers, which I think they would, Ubisoft. So maybe it's just the Switch people being laggy, and everyone else sort of operating fine.
So the last thing I wanted to call out was so they had another trailer for Watch Dogs Legion, right?
I don't know if you're about to say the same thing as me. Can I say one thing that I was gonna
go ahead?
So what I thought about, like, so for me, when I was actually really, really, because I knew that they'd already announced that they're going to talk about Watch Dogs Legion, and I was like so looking forward to just how are they going to position the last trailer and the grandmas and everything. And I was that's all I was thinking about watching it. I must admit, I don't even really remember what they were talking about. I was just thinking about it all the way through. So, sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, so I was the same. I had my eye keen on this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I even had a counter I was going to do a grandma counter, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
So they open it up and they have, honestly, a rapper that I don't know who he is. It's Stormzy or something like that.
You don't know Stormzy? Wow.
No, I don't. No idea.
You boomer.
But the thing is, like I think that's cool for people that maybe love Stormzy. I felt like it was like, I'm like, oh my god, they've taken this is like a third approach to how they're introing this game, and suddenly it's got like this thing to it. But then they actually showed an actual trailer that I actually thought was probably the best they've done in a while about it. There was only one grandma count. There was a grandpa as well. So, but I didn't count that. I'm like, there was one grandma. So they kind of scaled back a bit on that.
But can we just say that? Can we just say that? Because don't you feel like they actually played into it? Because they actually said grandparent. Did you hear them say that in the trailer?
Yeah, grandparents, but they did show the grandma later. So.
No, but they paused. It's like they're going to say grandma, like they did last time, but then they kind of went grandparent. And I feel like that's to me, it was a nod to what the last trailer. Are they just going to say about grandmas all the time?
But I think this was a much better look than the last time. And then they announced that Aiden Pierce, the character from at least number 1, I don't think he was the main character number 2, but I could be wrong on that. Shows how much I've actually played those games. But so they showed him with his, iconic hat, as everyone knows, but that he's post-launch content, story content. I'm like, I don't think you won enough people over yet to suddenly start spruiking your post-launch. What I assume is going to be paid DLC. I could be wrong that it's paid, but it kind of came across that way.
It'd be paid.
Yeah, so I was like, maybe wait and maybe do that its own thing. But overall, I think for the Ubisoft Forward event, some cool stuff. There was also some pre-show stuff we can get into. They're doing a Far Cry VR. They're doing a game called A Game of Space, which is a space exploration game. And they had a bunch of updates for Rainbow Six, For Honor, and Hyperscape and stuff. So overall, a pretty good event with some cool announcements.
Yeah, like I think overall, it didn't have the banger. Like maybe Scott Pilgrim, like probably was the same level as Far Cry 6 as the last one. So maybe it's about the same, to be honest.
I don't think that's anywhere near that level, Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, but I'm talking about the buzz. Like I've seen so much activity and noise about Scott Pilgrim. Like, to me, kind of the same level of Far Cry 6.
I saw more about the Sands of Time remake myself, but...
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And, for me, the Far Cry VR thing was really, really interesting. So it's like a physical live game. Like, so I don't know what these things are. What was it called? Zero latency or zero lag or something like that. It's like these centers where you can play these VR games, like in person.
Well, honestly, I didn't actually watch the pre-show, so I'm just going off an article that I read about Far Cry VR, so I didn't know that was so that's not an actual title that you purchase?
Doesn't look like it from what I saw. It was like, it's a game that you need to go. It's similar to the Mario Kart arcade games, so there are actually sort of like experiences that you have to either have the machines or, actually go to certain places where they play them. That's what my understanding is with Far Cry VR.
Okay, cool.
But it looked really cool. And I mean, they didn't show the game itself, really. It was kind of more of a trailer for it. Like, I actually wanted to see what it looked like the people playing it in real life, and then also just what it looked like with the headset on. And for me, the other one that I just wanted to shout out here was, because I'm always really interested in getting into Rainbow Six Siege. And then this whole World Cup thing, which is, I love these World Cup ideas for these esports. Like, I think it's such a smart way to get people into it. And Rocket League next year, I believe they've delayed it to. I mean, this year it was meant to happen. They've got the World Cup planned as well, where, you can compete in Australia and actually try to be like one of the folks who are on the team. So I don't know. I think it's a really cool way to get people into it where, you sort of get behind your country and, you naturally have a team to root for. And whether you go well or not, like obviously like the big teams and the big countries are going to dominate, the South Koreas and the USAs and things like that. But yeah, I think it's a really cool concept. I really like it. I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing. And I really like how, with Rainbow Six Siege in general, they sort of said, hey, this is a 10-year game. And, we're halfway through that now and we're fully committed to that. And, the next season that's releasing is even bigger. So, I think they've really backed up the talk with that game. And it's a very, very successful game. And, to be honest with that game, given how much DLC and season passes and stuff like that, I feel like, it's not going to be far away. Maybe when the next gen launches, when that game goes free to play. And I think at that stage, that's probably when I'll jump into it and try it out a bit more.
Did you see the pretentious ass trailer that led into that whole World Cup thing?
Oh, you didn't like it? I didn't mind it. I thought it was all right.
The trailer was fine, but the fact that it was for a game where you're going around shooting people was the most like tone deaf thing for me, because it's got like people partying culture in different countries and like people getting like their flag like put into their hair and like all this stuff, and then suddenly you start seeing this icon with a bloody gun in it. And I'm like, the trailer, it was shot really well. Like, it was a cool thing, really, but I'm like, it felt like, look, I don't think any product or whatever could probably have, probably lived up to what they were trying to set the scene there. But it felt like, I'm like, wait a second. Like, for Rainbow Six Siege, that whole thing was to lead into a game where you're going around killing people. And I know it's more than that. Like, it's a cool game. Don't get me wrong. I've got nothing against the game. I just felt like people celebrating like that, and then they show this icon for gun in it. Just felt so like, what? Like,
I get what you're saying.
It felt honestly like if you were to do that for a soccer game or something. I honestly thought, I was like, wait, is this some kind of soccer game? Because it felt like that. It had the very it just kind of had that feeling to me. And then I'm like, wow. That just felt so, like, not what I was expecting and completely took me out of it. And I'm like, what the hell? Anyway.
It's funny you say that. Because I genuinely thought that they were going to announce, like, a brand new soccer game. Because, you've got the two big soccer franchises out there, Pro Evolution and FIFA, obviously. And just given the whole world thing, like, I just assumed that they would be making like a soccer game where it's all about teams from different countries competing against each other and very carefully stepping away from anything called the World Cup or anything like that. Just because, they wouldn't be able to get the licenses otherwise. And yeah, when it became about Rainbow Six Siege, I did laugh because I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, it kind of, I don't know, I was kind of expecting a soccer game, and then it went into Rainbow Six Siege, and I was like, oh, okay. And then when they were talking about it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I really like it.
The stuff after I have no problem with. It's that, like, cinematic part leading up to it just felt so, like, wow. Like, there's no game that I think, video game I think would probably have fit there anyway. Like, I probably would have had that feeling about most stuff.
I think maybe Rocket League, given that that's not violent at all.
I know Rocket League would have been a much better fit, but obviously that's not them. But it's like, man, just when I saw that icon with the gun, I just couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's enough talk about Rainbow Six World Cup, I think.
Yeah, so that was the only other thing that I sort of looked at. They're always trying to spruik Hyperscape. I just feel like that game is dead. Like, there's a few games that have come out like that, and they're just, if they don't hit it off, they just don't last.
I don't think it's dead compared to something like Rocket Arena
Oh
dead.
yeah, that's really dead.
Like I don't think it's like that. I think
Yeah, agree.
it hasn't obviously hit, like big, but I think that they're doing the right stuff with, just they need to include it in these things because they need to keep that generating that awareness for it. And it could be, let's say in 3 months it could be dead. I don't know, but I
Well,
think it's
would you agree?
still got enough people playing it. So
Would you agree it's maybe stage 1 cancer? They've caught it early. Still high chance of recovery, but it's not great.
I think they're at the point where you're wondering if you should go get a lump checked.
Okay, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I agree with that. Whereas Rocket Arena, that has got stage 3 or stage 4 cancer.
Yes.
It is dire. It is dire. Like, I think it's free to play now. Like, they've just gone, like, stuff it.
All right.
We can't even sell this game, so.
Talking about dire,